And we're live. And I think if I did this correctly, everyone can hear me this evening. Uh, Welcome to the Ghosts of Bacon. I'm your host, Jake Roberts. Happy to be here with you. Seeing a lot of the my usual suspects here in the online chat here live. We have Jenny, we have Stephanie, Jason, my friend. Good to see you, Jason Mercer, a consummate Sir Francis Bacon researcher, Stephanie McPeak Peterson, also an amazing Bacon researcher. All the people. Tom Burns, my friend, good to see you. Penny, Patty, my sisters. I'm glad you guys can make it. Way too many to mention. Hey, there's my friend Jeff Freeman. Jeff, I'm going to be giving you a couple of shout outs tonight. And just because I need to make a couple of adjustments here. Yeah, the lighting's a little weird in here tonight, gang. Sorry, but I'm glad you could make it. I think that what I have for you tonight is something really pretty special. Um, you know, I look back at all of my Bacon research, Sir Francis Bacon, and it all started with Chris Dona and Christopher Morford, and their insistence that there are clues encrypted within the Shakespeare monument, and particularly the plaque of the verse that adorns Shakespeare's funerary monument. So I go back and I look at that and I realize that was the start of everything. It was, the hit show, The Curse of Oak Island, that started all of this for me. And which, and the more I got into this, the more discoveries I made regarding the ciphers encrypted within that particular plaque that I discovered. That's what started it all for me. But I got so immersed into the messages that after a while, I just said, you know what, I'm not that interested in. Well, I've always been interested in Oak Island, Nova Scotia, but I became so immersed within the messages as I was decrypting them regarding the truth about Sir Francis Bacon and his hidden autobiography. That was the name of my first book, The Holy Trinity Decryption, the hidden autobiography of Sir Francis Bacon. That, I lost sight of what originally pulled me into this. And tonight's episode is really about, paying homage to that idea that this is what really initially pulled me in is the Curse of Oak Island and Oak Island research. And the problem is that the more I do this, the more information I uncover, the more things kind of unfold, and I keep getting sucked back into the Oak Island universe. And so, tonight's episode is really about the astronomy, the archaeoastronomy of Oak Island. And this is, this was my dear friend Chris Dona's wheelhouse. And he's the one that originally pulled me into this. And so, I'm kind of, very humbled that, I stand on the shoulders of some giants here in all of my research. And I really feel that I need to, kind of talk about that a little bit. When it comes to the astronomy of it, of course, I just mentioned my dear friend who has passed, Chris Dona. And, I owe a huge debt of gratitude to him in terms of what he taught me. And even here, years later, I keep seeing how far-reaching and far forward his thinking was in Oak Island research, and how far ahead of his time he was, that most of us, weren't even caught up to what he was trying to say. And I'm very humbled by that. Chris Morford, if it hadn't been for him and some of the work that he had done, I never even would have looked at this plaque in the first place. That propelled me to decrypt it in the way that I did and find all of the cipher messages and the hidden autobiography of Sir Francis Bacon. So I owe him a debt of gratitude. Peter Dawkins, the consummate Sir Francis Bacon scholar and researcher. If it hadn't been for his work that I had read that he had published regarding the cipher systems of that Francis Bacon used, I wouldn't be able to do anything that I've done. And so, to that end, I want to say, thank you to those guys. And I see that a lot of people are saying they had trouble getting in. I'm really sorry to hear that, gang. Just looking through the chats. Oh, thanks, Stephanie. Thanks for moving people over. Um, so yeah, at this point we're at 25 live viewers and climbing. So I was kind of trying to think of what I wanted to do for tonight's episode, and I realized that I have a piece of information that I have never shared with anyone. It's not published in Oak Island Treasure Maps, and it wasn't a part of any of my War Room presentations, and yeah, I've never aired it before. I thought, well, this would be a really cool thing to do. And then as I was working on it, I discovered that it just unlocked a bunch of other really, really cool correlations in terms of my Oak Island research. And listen, gang, I keep putting that, on the back burner because you all know that I've been working on this book for now 2 years and trying to get it done. And we're now at exactly 300 pages and going. And that's not, let's see, by the time we're done, it's going to be probably about the same length as my first book, The Holy Trinity Decryption, about 350 pages or so. So we're talking about, this is a lot of work. And so that's been my whole focus. But as I started working on this presentation this week, I realized that there are some correlations here to Oak Island, Nova Scotia, that I think that people are going to find very, very interesting. So, you know what? Yeah, you know what? I'm going to throw my friend Jeff up here on the screen. Jeff Freeman, podcast, host extraordinaire. Everyone knows him. Thousands of fans. Doesn't that always happen? So many. Jeff, that's the problem. I talk to my friends, and right now I know that John Edwards, Will Russell, they're working on a collaboration. And every time you try to revise your work in your book, you find more connections every single time. And this is why my book is still not published, because as I continue to revise and put the manuscript together, like I said, I'm 300 pages and still going. I continually find more connections, and that's exactly it. So, Cat, I'm going to throw that up there. Jeff, who? Yeah, right. The guy's famous. So, hey, Jan, good to see you. Easy. Nice to see you. Z, I'm glad you're here. And Z knows this as well as anyone. There are so many rabbit holes. Oh my gosh. A lot of the information I'm going to share tonight, people are really going to love. Jan, that's exactly it. It just one thing leads to another. Now, there are a handful of people who are watching this evening. Some of them are not showing up in the chat, and that's fine. They all know what I'm leaving out of this presentation tonight. I'm talking to you, John. I'm talking to you, Will. You're not. I know you're there. Jason, you know the information that I'm going to be leaving out. Judy, other people. But just know that if I could include it, I would. But unfortunately, uh, the rest of these correlations that are showing up in this presentation tonight are in my next work, my next book, uh, The Keys of the Rosy Cross and The Ghosts of Bacon. Um, because I haven't shared this information with the public, other researchers, I make my information, available to other researchers who are now corroborating all of my findings, and they are again, and again and again, repeating the same results. And so I make my early findings available to them before I make them public, and they've been kind enough to, keep this under their hats. And for that, guys, thank you so much. I'm so appreciative of your discretion. And, well, like I said, I appreciate it. So I'm going to go ahead and jump into my presentation here. And so tonight, gang, we're going from my initial decryptions of the plaque that adorns Shakespeare's monument, and how it leads to the map of Samuel de Champlain, which leads directly to, you guessed it, Oak Island, Nova Scotia. And now, how did the stars align to make this happen? So, this is going to be part one in a series of astronomical alignments that appear on Oak Island. The first one, of course, here you see is the constellation of Delphinus. And I think that you're going to find this really, really interesting. Before I do, I got to post a couple of these comments because they're just too cool. Yeah, John, when you think you're done, you realize with the new discoveries that you're not done. And that's the problem, gang. It never, never ends with this stuff. And John, you, of all people, know too well. I'm going to spit some of it out, Jan. Don't worry. And Tom, sometimes if you read my books very, very closely, you might look and see a slight difference in some of the fonts. And if you want to really focus your attention using Sir Francis Bacon's biliteral cipher, you might find out that I'm doing just that. Yeah, I'm still teasing. All right, gang, let's go ahead and take a look at the plaque, the map, and the stars. Let's take a look at how this works. Now, the plaque ciphertext, those of you who are coming to this information for the first time, and most of you are the people who are going to be watching this recorded on YouTube or Facebook later. Here you see depicted the Shakespeare Funerary Monument in Holy Trinity Church in Stratford upon Avon. And what I did was I decrypted this plaque that's down below. There are a series of transposition ciphers contained within this plaque. And those original messages allude to the fact that Francis Bacon, as crazy as this sounds, and when I say this, I know how crazy it sounds, but this is what the messages say. Francis Bacon says his best alias was Samuel de Champlain. And so what that did was that led me to all of the works of Samuel de Champlain, and particularly his 1612 navigational chart. And this map leads directly to Oak Island, Nova Scotia. And Jeff, you're watching this evening. My good friend Jeff Freeman, whose podcast is fantastic, regarding Oak Island and all associated topics. I actually demonstrated on your show, Jeff, how this navigational chart works. And, that I think we were about, and correct me if I'm wrong, Jeff, but I think we did a deep dive for about 2 hours with me explaining how that worked. And it's unequivocal. It leads directly to Oak Island. Now, on this plaque, you'll see is the date of April 23rd, 1616. Now, this is incredibly important. That year, that's about I think Easter was April 3rd of that year. Correct me if I'm wrong. So it's about 20 days after Easter. And here you see this is the way the date is depicted on that plaque. This date, gang, was the key or the set of keys that allowed me to decrypt this uh, transposition cipher. So, I'm going back to my very, very first book. Uh, all of the information I provide in these podcasts is based upon the bedrock, or what William and Elizabeth Friedman would call the bedrock of cipher evidence. These were the cryptanalysts of the century. And so they were the experts, and they call this type of cipher evidence bedrock of evidence. So we know that anyone who has looked at this and read my book closely, they recognize that I'm correct. And so moving forward, we have to consider, all of my research is based upon those decryptions. Now, over the years, there have been a lot of celestial alignments related to Oak Island. First and foremost, Cygnus. Everyone knows about this one. It's always associated with Nolan's Cross. And we know about this along with Boetes. A lot of people call it Boots. Boetes is how it's pronounced, but Boots. And this, of course, is associated with Peter Amundsen's work. There's another alignment that I really want to just kind of mention tonight, because it was, for me, in my formative Oak Island research, this was very, very influential in me. And that's my friend Chris Dona and his Dona Virgo alignment. The way this works was Virgo aligned with the corner of the swamp. And when we were talking about it, he says, I don't know what this means. And we were kind of, pitching it back and forth. And I said, this is really interesting, because it's what's called the unification of opposites. Okay. This is, the blending of Virgo, the sacred feminine chalice symbol, which represents the womb, Virgo, with the triangular swamp, the upward pointing blade symbol, the sacred masculine symbol. So by joining those together, what you really have is the Star of Solomon, in a sense. So this led to Chris's presentation in the War Room that he titled The Rosicrucian Garden of Eden. Generated a lot of interest. Very, very cool presentation. Also, another celestial alignment on Oak Island, of course, is my own celestial alignment of the constellation of Hercules and the knee of Hercules and its placement on Oak Island, which turned out to be incorrect. I based this upon information about Nolan's Cross that turns out to be incorrect. And so I was not able to place the X on the map, unfortunately. It involves, obviously, the keystone asterism, which is a very, very important symbol in Freemasonry. And so tonight, what I'm going to show you are some new alignments that have arisen simply because of my where my research has taken me and these discoveries. Unfortunately, I can't divulge all of that information because it appears in my next book, but maybe in a couple of weeks when we do Bacon's Bash, and see John, Jason, Z, you're all out there, Stephanie. Maybe when we go live, maybe I'll give a little teaser there too. So tonight's constellation I'm going to talk about is Delphinus. Now, this is a tiny, tiny little constellation. And as everyone knows, through my research, I discovered that Francis Bacon was the Dauphin of France. This means that he was the son of the King of France. He was the son of Mary, Queen of Scots, and Francis II. Now, at this point, this is definitive in my research. All the other people I just mentioned have also confirmed this fact through their own research. And as much as people don't like it, sorry, it's true. It's a fact. And it's all outlined in my first book and in my third coming out soon. So the word Dauphin means dolphin in French, and that is the constellation of Delphinus. Delphinus represents a dolphin. Um, when you look at the ciphertext that I decrypted, some of the words that come out is cetus, which means whale, literally in Latin, but it's also sometimes used in reference to the word dolphin. Same thing with satia in Latin. Same exact meaning. However, with this spelling, the values in Bacon's ciphers are 33, 92, and 111 in simple, reverse, and K cipher, respectively, which are all the same exact values of the name Bacon. Just kind of throwing that in there as an aside. Now, the mythology about the constellation of Delphinus is really pretty interesting. There are two different stories referring to Greek myth. I'm going to refer to the one that is told second, usually, which involves the poet Arion of Lesbos. Now, Arion was the best poet and the best musician the world had ever seen at that point. And history actually records his true existence. And he actually did what would be considered the same as a musical tour here in America with like a rock band or something like that. And so he did this tour of his music and poetry throughout the Mediterranean, along the coasts of Italy and Greece. And on his way home, he had made and amassed a small fortune for himself. Okay, this guy at this point, he was set for life after this tour. And so the crew on the ship decided, I think we're going to keep this for ourselves. And so they were forcing him out the ship. And he said, hold on, I just grant me one wish that I can, one final, thought that I can sing one last song. And he created a funeral dirge for himself, or lament or whatever. And he sings this song. And the legend goes that it was so enthralling and so beautiful that a whole school of dolphins swam up. And then when he threw himself off the side of the boat, one of the dolphins scooped him up and got him to shore safely. Another version is that Apollo was so in love with his music and then thought he was just the best musician ever that Apollo sent a dolphin to save him. Either way, the dolphin, saves him and sends, carries him back to the coast of Greece. Arion is able to accuse this crew of the ship of what they've done and prove it. And, the rest is history. And that dolphin is immortalized in the sky as Delphinus from Apollo. Now, it's placed near Lyra in the sky. Of course, everyone knows what a lyre is. Again, the muses and how it's associated with Apollo. And so, due to all of these facts, this constellation of Delphinus is associated with Apollo, the Greek god Apollo, and the muses. And we all know that Sir Francis Bacon was also always associated with Apollo. This brings me to the computer program called Stellarium. Now, my friend Christona introduced this to me. This is how he actually studied the alignments regarding Oak Island. And this was fascinating to me. I never knew this was even possible, but just hear me out. This is such an incredibly powerful tool in terms of studying the night sky and even the daytime sky, in terms of constellations, alignments, planetary bodies. You get it. So what it does is it allows you to identify star locations, constellation locations, regardless of where you are as seen. You can see them from very specific places and times on the planet. This is the cool part. So Chris said to me, he says, what he does, he sets up his default location of how he wants to see the night sky from the center of Nolan's Cross. And he said, go ahead and download the program, Jake, and set it up so that you are looking at the night sky from the center of Nolan's Cross. So that's what I did. And I asked him if he had ever, of course, obviously the location is Oak Island, and you can actually see that. This is the location bar down at the bottom of the program here. Earth, Nolan's Cross, Oak Island, Nova Scotia. And what I did was I entered the date on the plaque of Shakespeare's funerary monument. I asked him, I said, have you done this? He says, well, I not really. I haven't really, have an impetus to, but that's a good idea. And so we both did it. And we're both in. At the time, I hadn't completely decrypted the plaque. So we didn't have a whole lot to go on here. But at this point in my research, I realized that there's so much more that I hadn't even realized at the time. So notice here, this is a screenshot, and you can see the blank black bottom part of the screen. That's the horizon of Oak Island as seen from Nolan's Cross. And if you look down here to the right, you can see that the year is 1616, and that is April 23rd. And you at midnight, but you can see that it took me 2.5 minutes to take the screenshot because I'm, a little klutzy. And here, looking due east, we see the constellation of Delphinus. Look at the dolphin. Okay. It's almost like he's diving out of the horizon and playing on the horizon, diving back into the ocean. And here he is in that perfect little shape there, like he's playing on the horizon. I think that's pretty cool. So I looked at the date, and this is a couple of weeks after Easter. And so I'm thinking about, the play of the solar system in terms of where the sun rises on the horizon. And I thought, I wonder what will happen if we take a look at this. So I'm going to let this load here. What I did was I've created this little time-lapse video here. Started autoplay. And what you're going to see, gang, is that you can see that it starts a couple of minutes before midnight is how I set it up so that we can see from midnight where Delphinus is right here. Here's east. Here's Delphinus. And we're going to see it where it is right about here at midnight. And then you're going to see it. You'll see my cursor move up here, and it will, go hour by hour, and you're going to see Delphinus kind of fly away. But then you're going to see the sun getting ready to rise. And I want you to pay attention to exactly where the sun rises. So here you see my cursor at midnight, and then you see hour, 5 o'clock, and now minute by minute as the sun rises. And there we are. The sun is rising right in the exact position of Delphinus, the dolphin on Oak Island. If you remember, I talked about the meaning of the word cetus, meaning whale, and Cetus. And look at the constellation where the sun is rising, right in the crown of Cetus. So this is highly significant in terms of that date on the plaque. And what I'm going to do is let me go back, look, everyone stare at your screen, note where the sun is right there, and let me go right back to 0 where Delphinus is on the horizon, and boom, Delphinus. I'll let it play again. And there he goes. Bye-bye, Delphinus. Here comes the sun. Do-do-do-do. And boom. The same exact position. So how is that possible? I mean, well, that is the one location on planet Earth where that date and location has that correlation between the constellation of Delphinus and the sun associated with the god Apollo, associated with Francis Bacon, and of course, Francis Bacon being the Dauphin. I love that connection. Now, as we know, as I said, Francis Bacon is associated with Apollo, and also the dolphin through the Dauphin connection, as well as the symbolic mythological connection between Apollo and the dolphin. Now, the location of Delphinus and the sun, with this juxtaposition where at midnight, here's Delphinus just above the horizon, playing is above the horizon, and then the sun rises in that exact spot, with Apollo being the sun god, of course. If we consider Agrippa magic squares, Apollo being the sun god, this is associated with the 6x6 sun magic square, which of course is associated with the sun, and therefore Apollo. Its constant is 111, which people who have been following this podcast for a while recognize immediately as Bacon in K cipher. That is his signature, 111 in K cipher. So a lot of Francis Bacon connections, and for it to happen with that specific date and that location at the center of Nolan's Cross on Oak Island, Nova Scotia, is for me incredible. So there are other correlations we need to consider to provide even greater context to this amazing coincidence. First of all, the knee of Hercules. Hercules was overhead at midnight in that same location. There's another constellation that is in exact opposition of Delphinus. And unfortunately, this has to do with my current research. And in a few weeks, I'm going to be able to go ahead and reveal exactly what that is in my next presentation in terms of the astronomical alignments of Oak Island. It's going to play a key role. For now, I have to keep that under my hat. But that one, in and of itself, when you look at these two things being locked in together, this is irrefutable evidence that this island, Oak Island, was very, very significant to Sir Francis Bacon. The incredible alignment here, it defies logic. So the other correlation, of course, is the Champlain map, the 1612, and how it leads directly to Oak Island. Again, associated, and I was directed to it because of the decryptions in the plaque, the multiple transposition ciphers. And within that Champlain map, the clues lead directly to Oak Island. I demonstrate that on your podcast, Jeff. And I think that people recognized and understood exactly how that worked in a very logical manner. On this map, on the Champlain map, there are so many Bacon signatures and signposts of the Rosy Cross that it's unequivocal that Champlain was one of his aliases, without a doubt. I've also demonstrated on the show and others. I think I also showed it on your show, Jeff Freeman. Was it 2 years ago? With how the Jerusalem map has coordinates encrypted within it that and Bacon edited the 1611 King James Bible for over a year, according to legend. And the coordinates lead directly to the garden shaft where our friends on Oak Island are currently searching. So my question to all of you, is this a coincidence? Or I think all of you recognize that my belief is that Sir Francis Bacon would say, I did it on purpose. I did this entire presentation just for that pun. I want you to know. Well, he didn't do it just for the halibut. I'm sorry. That's just really horrible. Yes, way, my friend. And there's so much more. And I can't wait. Hopefully I can share that with you later. Yeah, dad jokes, Jan. Yeah, for sure. I can't help it. But I mean, it's one of my favorite puns. Oh, thanks, Jeff. That's just it. It's like with the Champlain map and the 1611. I mean, step by step. I mean, we can just kind of connect every single dot there. With this presentation tonight, John Edwards, I'm going to give you a shout out. just because, I mean, you have told me it's like smaller bites, Jake, smaller bites. And so tonight I wanted to just let's cover delphinus, but there's so much more than just delphinus. Oh, cool. Good one, decoder ring. And most people when they think of Delph or think of Cygnus, they're thinking, the sweet swan of Avon, but absolutely. I wasn't getting into that Facebook user, and I wish I could see your name, but um, simple cipher told us 103. 103 is Shakespeare. Yep, 100%. Reverse 122. 122 is Bacon's royal birthday. Important because yes, 100% true. However, I have a new meaning of 122 because we have to remember that the conventions in England of having month and day are different than here in America. So 122 would be something different. It would be um, well, actually, when it'd be the 12th day of February because they do the day and then the month, whereas here in America we do the month and then the day. 122 is the value of Catherine Medici in simple cipher. And you're going to see in my next book, it unlocks a whole series of messages. All right, I'm going to go back. I just saw that, Stephanie. That's funny. Absolutely. Oh, hey, Decoder. Yeah, you know what? I just talked to Ryan a little while ago, and I talked to our mutual friend Greg. Yeah, he found what he believes are leg bones. Lots of interesting things going there in that region for sure. Frank, great question because that's the one available. And when it comes to the older images of the plaque, it remains unchanged. The problem is that a lot of the images back before there was photography uh, are not exactly accurate and they're not dependable. Um, and so, there's been a lot of discussion regarding uh, a lot of that work. And from what I've seen, is that there's been a lot of disinformation going on there as well. So, great question. Thanks, Stephanie. And Ray, that's really what it's all about. Yeah, absolutely. So, when we consider that date from that position and having that alignment happen that way, the big question is, is that just a coincidence? Well, you could write it off as a one-off until we recognize that, one of the original ciphertext talks about the knee of Hercules, right? My original uh, presentation. Um, but there's this one last piece that I can't wait to divulge and reveal to the world for the first time uh, that involves directly in opposition, just south of west, another constellation. And when you recognize the symbolism of what's going on there with that constellation in relation to the rest of my research, if you found tonight's presentation to be, really interesting and wow, that's impressive. Thank you, but not as impressive as what's to come. I promise you. So, and see, this is why I love the members of our group and the people who watch the show. Happy Adventure. If you don't know who owned that ship, look it up, gang. There's so much more to come. I just saw that, Jeff. That's great. Sorry, John. Couldn't resist. Oh, Jason. I didn't realize that was you. Yeah. I should have known because of how good the comment was, but I didn't see that. Yeah. Make sure you log in on StreamYard with your Facebook account, buddy, so I can see your name. But see, you of all people know the truth of that. And here's the thing: it's going to take many lifetimes for us to all decipher this out. This is why I've been making all of my research so open source, because you, William, Jason, John, and Stephanie, all of you have been kind of like climbing on board and starting to look at this stuff more closely. So that hopefully it won't take multiple lifetimes. We'll be able to get through it, all of us together in one lifetime. Thanks, Jeff. Yeah, you know what? It's like I didn't really understand how incredibly important he was until I decrypted these ciphers in the plaque, and then I recognized this is the greatest mind of the last millennia. Just unbelievable. Jenny, is he the one following Baconian clues from the Bible to find a treasure in the southern U.S.? You're talking about Ryan Plaster, of course. Yes, he is. He's using the 1611 Bible. He's using the works of Shakespeare, and he believes that Bacon is in the Ozarks. So, Frank, go ahead. Can I say where the feather pen points? Please do. You and I have talked about this. It's very, very cool. And you know what? Thank you so much. I know Chris would be 100%. And it's like I said, I'm standing on the shoulders of giants, and out of all of them, he's the biggest. So I have a huge debt of gratitude to my dear friend who's passed. Oh, thanks, Linda. Yeah, hit the thumbs up, gang, if you like what you see. Oh, Barbara, what a great question. Well, yeah, it does. The December triangle is actually fit in specifically with one of Chris Dona's theories, and it all ties together. And as far as how the December triangle ties in with what I'm doing, a lot of the constellations I'm using are a part of the triangle. But if only Chris were here, he'd be able to explain it. That's why this guy, I don't remember his name, John, always says it takes a village. Yeah, what's his name? He always says that. A lot of you, I don't know if you've been following Frank's work on the Ghosts of Bacon. He's been sending me a lot of his research, a lot of his work, and he's been posting it in our group. And he's been working with the monument in a completely different way in terms of how it aligns with things on Oak Island. And his contention is that the feather pen points a lot. 22 and 23. That's Dave's property. Yep. You're welcome. You're welcome, Frank. Yeah, Jenny. We've all been following what Ryan's been doing, and it's really interesting stuff. I'm not at liberty to really comment, but I like I said, I hope he finds something too, and I think that he's going to find something. Whether it's exactly what he's looking for or what he hopes to find, I don't know. But um, to be sure, his research is intriguing. It's very, very interesting. Yeah, Z, want to give Frank a big shout out because Frank, the amount of work you've been doing, particularly the stuff you've been sending me, it's like it's like I'm sorry I can't always reply right away, but uh, the amount of work you've been doing, buddy, is phenomenal, and you already have enough for a book of your own. I suggest you work on that, buddy, because it's really, really impressive stuff, and it's an impressive amount of research you're doing for sure. Tell me more, Easy. We got old silver coins showing up in Mattawa. Oh, you're welcome, Frank. So easy. Let's get after that stuff. You and me, buddy. Let's go. All right, gang. Coming up on close to an hour here. I want to be respectful of your time. Again, so what I'm planning on doing is just a short series of 3, possibly 4 um, episodes regarding the archaeoastronomy and the astronomy of Oak Island. This is the first showing delphinus, the crossover of Francis Bacon, the Dauphin, with the astronomical constellation of delphinus, how it's associated with Apollo, and the correlation between that alignment specifically from Oak Island on the date of the plaque of Shakespeare's funerary monument, and how that aligns perfectly with the sun. When I show you the rest of the alignments, I'm hoping that you recognize that it was done on purpose. So all of that for that wonderful pun. I absolutely love that pun. So, all right, gang. Going to call it quits here this evening, 7:53. I want to thank you for joining me here at the Ghosts of Bacon. And like I said, if you like what you watch, make sure you punch that like button on YouTube. And thank you for your continued support. I appreciate you all. A lot of you are, all of my great people showing up here in the chat. I appreciate your comments. You always have the best questions, the best commentary going. And all of you who don't, but just sit back and enjoy the material, thank you so much for your continued support. I appreciate you more than you realize. So I'm your host, Jake Roberts. I'm signing off for this evening. And don't forget, in 2 weeks' time, we're going to have the second annual Bacon Birthday Bash. It's going to be the day after my birthday and the day before his. And you know what? So far, I have lined up for you as guests Jason Mercer, and correct me if I'm wrong, Z Zandlow. We're going to be having Stephanie. I don't think Will can make it. And John is a maybe, depending upon how his team is doing in football. So, and if he does show up, he's, going to be coming off the end of a tailgate. So that should be fun. John, I hope you make it, especially because of that. That would be a lot of fun. So it's a birthday bash after all. I mean, let's do it right. Okay. All right, gang. So in a couple weeks, Bacon's birthday bash. Can't wait to see you there. And I might have a jaw-dropping announcement at that time, a preview of the bombshell of my next book, The Keys of the Rosy Cross. And when I drop that announcement, I know that my friends, that Jason, Will, John, Z, and Stephanie are going to be very, very relieved because they've been keeping this under wraps for over a year now. And so they can kind of let loose with a lot of their findings and their research that corroborates what I found. So we'll talk about that on the birthday bash because it's not only Sir Francis Bacon's birthday. And we'll talk about that then. Until next time, gang, I can't wait to see you. And thanks so much for your support. Appreciate you all. Have a good night.